If you think about Pokemon, you know typings is one of the first things that's going to pop up in your mind. But the most popular type by far is Dragon. Maybe it's their incredibly cool and convoluted designs, or it could be something totally different, like the viability in battle. Either way, we're going to mix the most popular Pokemon game right now, Pokerogue, with the most popular typing Dragon, and see if we can beat it as a monotype run. And I'd like to know your favorite Dragon type in the comments down below. Mine is the king of the Jurassic era, Tyrantrum. But I'd love to see somebody that says unironically that Shelgon is their favorite. And if you want to see more Pokerogue content, let me know by smashing that like button. If we can hit 6,000 likes, I'll bring you another run. I hope that sounds like a fair trade offer to you, because right now, we're dragging my nuts all over Pokerogue. And if you don't know what Pokerogue is by now, I highly recommend to check out my first 2 videos to see what it's all about. Now, first things first was choosing my starter Pokemon. I really wanted to go with Dreepy because a Dragon Ghost type is always incredibly overpowered, and it had the chance to learn Will-O-Wisp, which is great for boss fights. Unfortunately for me, Dreepy was not unlocked yet, so I had to take some other Pokemon, which required a lot of thinking, which is something I'm obviously not good at with my small-ass brain. There were 3 Pokemon I considered taking into this run with me. First one was Koraidon, but he cost 9 points, which meant I was going to be stuck with him for a while as my only Pokemon, because none of the other Dragon types cost 1 point. And while Koraidon might be one of the best Pokemon in the entire game, I wanted more than one starter to start off with. So instead, I opted for Walking Wake, my second favorite Dragon type Pokemon, and this thing is way cooler than Suicune, by the way. Oh, and it also had Earth Power as an egg move, which made it basically a no-brainer. This, however, still left me with 4 more points, which would let me take any pseudo-legendary of my liking. And I decided to stay in Generation 9 with Frigibax as my second boy. We all know Baxcalibur is an absolute powerhouse with Glaive Rush and Dragon Dance, so I couldn't really pass up on Godzilla himself. After my choice was made, I got pulled into the time loop and started my fight against Eternatus for the millionth time. I immediately noticed a change in the top right corner. It now says what biome you're in. Looks like we're in a town, which means we're slaughtering Pidofs today. Basically all with Walking Wake, as Frigibax is going to be incredibly underwhelming until it finally evolves. After defeating a Pokemon, you obviously always get the choice between some items and if you want to heal up your Pokemon. I opted to go with as many X items as possible so that sweeping and surviving would become way easier. I also picked up some Great Balls for later Dragon type encounters. At level 6, my Raptor learned how to bite, which is not that great because Walking Wake is a special attacker, but once I made my way to Area 8, I ran into a white knight in shining armor who was here to save the princess and slay the dragon. Little did he know that the princess would actually be controlling the dragons. He thought he could slay me with his little chicken and bird, but those two just made a great breakfast for my mighty beast. With the EXP Charm and EXP Chair now unlocked, my powers only became more formidable. The boss here turned out to be another bird, so after we sent the tornado after it, we arrived at floor 2, which were the plains, which are full of pigs and sheep, and as you all know, dragons tend to steal those from farmers and eat them, hence why people are hunting them in games like Skyrim. Luckily for me, there's no dragon born in the Pokerogue universe, or is there? We wouldn't find that out though until we were done fighting little rodents, and one of them happened to be holding a dragon fang, an old relic that's been left behind by one of the strongest dragons ever, and it powers up my moves. So I slapped it on my wake and walked my way up to Area 20 where Sharon was waiting for me. He's had enough of me terrorizing all the normal types in this region, so he's going to try and put a stop to me with his Chinchino and little dog. But all we had to do was splash him with some water and bada boom bada bing. People, first it's time for me to talk about the sponsor of today's video, Zen Market. Have you ever seen a TikTok of an influencer or somebody going to Japan and you think by yourself, I want to buy everything they have there? But maybe you live in a place where getting stuff from Japan is really hard. That's where Zen Market comes in to make everything a bunch easier for you. This goes from Pokemon stuff to basically anything you want to get your hands on. Personally, I like to buy plushies this way that aren't available in Europe, or Japanese exclusive Pokemon card sets sets or cartridges. And the way it works is pretty easy. You can also search for these items in integrated Japanese stores like Amazon and Rakuten, or paste a link of other stores to add items to your cart, making all of this an incredibly easy process. And if you're not a native English speaker or your English just isn't that good, don't worry, because they operate in over 19 languages and their customer service is top notch. And if you're done shopping and the next day you think by yourself, oh, I forgot to get this, don't worry, because they have a 60-day stockage period so you can shop day by day. And if you think by yourself, why should I believe this swampy guy, just go and check the 2 million other people that are using ZenMarket and trusting them with their orders. They have a bunch of payment options to make everything easier for you at checkout, and with our new collaboration you can also use promo code ZWIGGO when creating a new account to get 1,000 ZenPoints for free, which would take 1,000 yen off of the shipping costs. So what are you waiting for? Go and order some Japanese goodies with our good friends at ZenMarket. But now let's get back into the video. We're already on floor number 3, which turns out to be the lake. The perfect environment for my water raptor. But what I didn't expect to see here was a map that lets me choose my next destination, and a flamingo. That's just a flamingo. But what surprised me even more was the appearance of Finn, the blue-haired knight, coming back for revenge. And boy was he confident, saying that dragons are worth nothing, at least not when they're facing a sword. And I guess he should have brought one, because his Combustion, Corvusquire, and Spiritomb were not enough. All we needed was Earth Power and Water Pulse, and Finn was sent back to his kingdom. After this, I smoothly made my way to floor 30, where I was met with a little fish that soon turned into the biggest fish of all time. I can't lie, I was afraid this thing was going to swallow me whole. It also tried to seduce me with some tearful looks, but all I needed were twisters and earth powers. This allowed me to go to the beach and finally let me do some relaxing by eating some crawfish and pulling Wigglets straight out of the ground. But on floor number 34, I saw a piece of sushi that was perfect to add to my team. Honestly, I don't like sushi one bit myself. I don't really eat anything that came in the sea, but I will actually take another water dragon type. I didn't really pick up anything all that special except for some X items, which made the fight against the boss Kingler on floor 40 a lot easier, which brought me to a totally new area called the Island, which is filled with only Alolan forms. An awesome new addition, and this makes me wonder what other new areas have been added. And believe me when I say we'll be seeing the most useful one later on. My walking wake was playing Meteor as it wiped out all of these forms from this island until a challenger approached. It was Nessa, and she's had enough of this Alolan disrespect. And as she threw out her bulky water bug, my dragon decided to breathe on it, and that was already enough to take it down. Fast fish and strong turtle are no match against the power of Earth, and as Nessa sinks into the ocean, so does the island, and we end up in the sea. After eating some fish, I do find a crown on the bottom of the ocean, which gives me a chance to flinch. So I gave it a walking wake as well as some vitamins that were just floating about. I eventually stumbled upon my savior, Laprush, which I thought was going to bring me to the mainland again. Apparently this thing can't handle a couple of well-coordinated dragon-type attacks, and this led us to Finn instead. Don't ask me what he's doing in the sea, but it seems like he's willing to follow me to every nook and cranny in the world just to try and slay my dragons. Once his steel bird is down to 2 water pulses, Frigibax evolves into Arctibax, which I actually like more than the fully evolved form. I just very much adored it. It looks like a Spinosaurus, which is one of my favorite dinosaurs. His Spiritomb and newly added Munchlax go down the same way, and because of the rain, his final Pokemon Blaziken also gets one-shot and extinguished. With Finn now floating somewhere in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean, I decided to head to floor 60, where we fought a superhero that forgot to put on its costume, and so the boss Palafin was easily defeated. But then we ended up in a spot where dragons don't excel at all. An ice cave. We did get a couple items that made our life a little easier, like an HP up and Outrage, which we put on Arctibax. We did end up running into a Walrein who was able to take down my Walking Wake and Arctibax with body slams, all because we got paralyzed so many times in a row. So this run was left on the teeny tiny shoulders of Tatsugiri, so I sent it out and clicked Nasty Plot. I then went for a Muddy Water, and I knew that the next one was going to kill, but obviously obviously Muddy Water doesn't have the highest accuracy, so if we miss this move, our run is over. I prayed to the gods, but luckily this wave of mud wiped out this huge walrus. On floor number 69, we got a Quick Claw, which I gave to Tatsugiri because he's the slowest on the team. This didn't help us against the boss Frozlaz though, but we did hit an outrage with Arctibax before it went down, and then Suicune could finish it off with Water Pulse and Aqua Jet. The Ice Cave led to a snowy forest, which was not better for my dragon types, and while we did face a prehistoric fish, nothing stood up to the power of my now newly evolved Baxcalibur, as it now has access to Glaive Rush, which is just going to sweep everything in our path. And by maxing out his PP, we can use it even more. After picking up some Relic Gold and making myself a millionaire, we ended up running into Candace. But does anybody even know who Candace really is? I guess you have to find out by commenting down below, who is Candace? Question mark. I started off with a half-health Baxcalibur and immediately got critted by an Earth Power from Vanillux. So I set up one Dragon Dance and eat that scone like it's my breakfast. This made me level up and learn Icicle Crash, a way better Ice-type move than Ice Fang, so now Dragonite will be shivering in his boots. And after crushing Weavile, Glilly, and Abomasnow like it was nothing, we moved to a mountain, which should be a place where dragons roam free. But apparently the only thing we saw here were some pigs that were jumping around and a bird from ancient Egypt, before also finding an Altaria. Finally, another dragon flying type. Baxcalibur's PP got even bigger before we captured a second Altaria because it had a better nature than the first one, and once Walking Wake was done eating the Blaziken's boss legs like it's KFC, we moved on to Area 10, which was a wasteland, a newly implemented area that only houses dragon-type Pokemon, so this is heaven for me. I immediately started off by capturing a Garchomp, which also has a jolly nature, which means we might be able to Mega Evolve it in the end. But that wasn't the only big hitter, as we also grabbed a Cyclozar, which is incredibly fast and can do some stuff maybe with Shed Tail. And on floor 95, we ran into Finnegan, who has just entered the lair of the enemy. I mean, walking around in a dragon-type wasteland might not have been the best idea for him, as my Baxcalibur kills his terrestrialized Blaziken with Glaive Rush. Walking Wake did a ton of damage on his Steel Bird with Hydro Steam, and when he swapped out into Diplin, Dragon Pulse made that apple explode. All we then needed was Baxcalibur's Glaive Rush and Ice Shard to take care of the remaining Snorlax, Corviknight, and Spiritomb. With a frozen demeanor, Finn once again leaves us alone and we start shredding through the rest of the wasteland. And as we defeat an Altaria, we end up getting a shiny Charm, and if we can get a shiny dragon type, I will eat my own pants. Immediately after, we find a plus special attack nature combo O, which can be incredible, with Clangorous Soul, which boosts all of its stats by one stage, and then hitting the opponent with Clanging Scales. And as we capture our last dragon type here, Dragonite, who unfortunately doesn't have the multi-scale ability, but we now do end up with a team of 6 that's going to be able to get through almost anything this game can throw at me. 4 pseudo-legendaries, a Paradox Pokemon, and I guess the odd one out is the piece of sushi, but this boss Dredigan didn't stand a chance as we finally move on to the floor that marks the second half of this adventure. And to start us off here, we entered the Badlands, which is an area basically filled with ground-type Pokemon, so Walking Wake had a field day hydro steaming everything, which turned the entire ground into a pool of mud. Some notable items were Rogue Balls in case we run into a Dragon-type legendary, a TM for Drain Punch, which I gave to Kama O to try and get its HP back from time to time, and this is also going to combine pretty sweetly with Clangorous Soul, which always takes 1/3 of your HP away if you use it. And after grabbing a Memory Mushroom to learn him Clanging Scales as well, we ended up fighting Gym Leader Grant and his rock types. For whatever reason, he had a level 91 Tyrant, which Walking Wake earth-powered and sent back to the prehistoric times. His terrestrialized Auroras got flinched by a Hydro Pump because of my King's Rock and then killed because of another Hydro Steam. Cloth and Golem both got one-shot by the same move, but Corsola did end up taking me out with Power Gem after tanking a Earth Power, so I ended up giving Dragonite his first kill with Outrage. After our win, we get sent back to a mountain, which I hoped was going to bring us another Dragon type to replace Tatsugiri, but that wasn't the case. We only got another PP max for Kommo-o, and before I even knew it, I was already at stage 120 where Hawlucha got the Punch of Drains. As a reward, we get thrown into a volcano at stage 13, and since it's always so hot here, the sun is always up. The Walking Wake's signature move Hydro Steam actually gets boosted in the sun instead of weakened like normal water type moves, and as all the Pokemon here are actually fire types, which basically made me able to extinguish the entire place without taking damage. We did get a Terra Orb as a reward, which unlocks Terrestrialization, and with one more Reviver Seed under our belt, which we gave to Baxcalibur, our boss fight with Salazzle turned out to be incredibly easy, as all the 3 health bars got killed by 1 Hydro Steam. This luckily busts the myth that dragons can be defeated with their own fire, and after you jump into the volcano, you obviously need to do the opposite straight after, by going to the beach, so me and my dragons can chill out. We terrorize some of the local fishermen and get a Memory Mushroom as a reward, which we use to learn Extreme Speed to Dragonite, which is a move that makes his speed go extreme. We grabbed a Dragon Terra Shard and gave it to our Godzilla, which made him destroy a kid's sandcastle and crush the skull of a Crustle. We gave one more Iron to our Kommo-o to boost his defenses, and then Kofu saw what the ruckus we were up to, and he was down to try and stop the dragons. Little did he know that water types are clearly not very effective against me, so we Dragon Dance up with our Glaive Rushing boy, and so we bulldoze through Swampert, Veluza, Poliwrath, Wugtrio, Pelipper, but then my Glaive Rushes ran out, so I had to swap out when Dracovish hit the field. I swapped into Dragonite, and normally this would be an easy kill with Outrage, but because it's terrestrialized in a pure water type, we actually lost this matchup, so Garchomp had to come in and clean up with a Dragon Claw. We then ran into the ocean and ended up in another sea biome, but there was nothing really here except for Gyarados or Gyarados. I don't know what the multiple form of Gyarados is, to be honest, but they should be Dragon type is what I'm trying to say. Only for us to find Finn again on floor 145. He has no words anymore. He just knows that if he loses this battle, he'll lose his title as Knight with it. So there might be a little bit of nervousness coming from him, but I guarantee you that he still has no idea how Pokemon battling is actually done right. I start off with Kommo-o against his Blaziken. Unfortunately, when I click Boom Burst, he swaps out into his shiny Rayquaza. And with its 3 health bars, it's basically getting ready to sweep my entire team. Luckily, I just have to bring in Baxcalibur, tank it out with 6 HP remaining, and knock the Master of the Skies back to the ground. Because of my Reviver Seed, I also survive a couple of hits from the next Pokemon Corviknight, which allows me to set up a Dragon Dance and eventually kill it with a Icicle Crash. And so we just need one more move to take out Spiritomb, Snorlax, Hydrapple, and Blaziken to get rid of Finn once and for all. We then terrestrialize Kommo-o with a Fighting type Shard, kill the big waving Simipour boss with Dragon Pulses from Walking Wake, and move on to another Ice Cave to try and make my life a little bit more miserable. At least that's what I thought, but of course we did just terrestrialize our Kommo-o, so we Drain Punch through everything, even got a Super XP Charm, and a Protein to make my Baxcalibur even stronger. A trainer with an Alolan Ninetales somehow defeated 2 of my Pokemon, which made me realize that we're really weak to Fairy types, which we luckily enough don't run into all that often. And as we Glaive Rush the boss Frostlass on floor 160, we get to move on to yet another snowy forest. This floor turns out to be a little bit too easy for me, as Baxcalibur and Kommo-o totally took over as they managed to rake in another PP up and a ground Terra Shard for Garchomp. Candace is back, and even though we still don't know who she is, she does want revenge for eating her ice cream last time. So I thought, why not use a Clangorous Soul and sweep her again with Drain Punches before I got blizzarded. So that plan's out of the window. On to the second plan, Dragon Dancing Baxcalibur, and that's what I did. Vanillux destroyed with Glaive Rush, just like Walrein and Glalie. But then her terrestrialized Weavile came out, and I actually ran out of Glaive Rushes, so we had to spam Icicle Crash 3 turns in a row for that to fall. And then Cryogonal came in, but because we've already taken so much damage, it could clean me out with Ice Beam, but Walking Wake's Dragon Pulses finished off this and the Abomasnow Snow. And so the dragons have once again defeated their arch nemesis, powering through and getting more confidence for that fight with the big bad Eternatus. Stage 14 was another mountain filled with flying types, which allowed us to grab a soft sand for Garchomp, the moves Protect and Double Team, which I also learned to Garchomp and Dragonite, and finally another Dragon Terra Shard to give to Baxcalibur so he could one-shot the boss Gogode at floor 180. But then stage 19 came my way, and this is known as the killer stage, because you're fighting 4 Elite Four members and a champion here. And the first one we were facing was Sydney, so I started with Baxcalibur, set up 2 Dragon Dances, and proceeded to sweep this man so hard that he somehow became even more bald. And after defeating a Colossal and grabbing myself one more PP up, Phoebe was up next. Walking Wake immediately put in some insane work by taking out Goldingo with Earth Power, Sableye with Hydro Steam, and Banette with Hydro Pump. Then Dusknoir took one more Hydro Pump to the face before finally delivering the final blow to my Walking Wake. Kommo-o proceeded to take down a dog with clanging scales, because Dusknoir decided to swap out, but eventually Chandelure took me out with a single Shadow Ball, and that meant that Tatsugiri could just Water Pulse this and the last Pokemon to move on to Candace's mom Glacia, here to try and take redemption for her fallen daughter. And here I thought my terrestrialized Baxcalibur was just going to sweep through her, so I started Dragon Dancing and easily killed the first Pokemon. Little did I know that the incoming Alolan Sandslash would survive and kill me with a single Glacial Lance, which put me in a little bit of trouble, might I say grave danger even. So I decided to send in Garchomp. Little did I know this thing had 2 Citrus Berries, which made him survive a dig and kill even my Land Shark. Swapped in Walking Wake, went for the Earth Power to try and finally finish this off, but that didn't work out either, as Abomasnow tanked it and survived multiple Dragon Pulse hits because of Citrus Berries once again and did a ton of damage to my Raptor. So I brought in Kommo-o, who survived a Wood Hammer and Ice Hammer, and even set up with a Clanger of Soul so I could Drain Punch Obama. And so you may think the rest of the team went down soon after, which I would have loved to say if I didn't get frozen by a Walrus, who then proceeded to take me down too. But as him and the last Pokemon Sandslash didn't have that much HP remaining, Walking Wake was able to finish them off with Pulses of Dragon. I then spent all my hard-earned cash to revive the rest of my team before facing the old master, Drake. He's one of my role models ever since I was young. A cool pirate with a cool team. Who wouldn't love to be like him? But today, it's finally time that the student beats the master. You might think that Baxcalibur is going to sweep here, but actually Walking Wake puts in some work by taking out Flygon, Kingdra, Altaria, and doing some major damage against Garchomp and Salamence before finally biting the dust himself. And that's the moment when Baxcalibur comes in, as he takes out another Flygon, Garchomp, and Salamence, which meant that defeating Drake was probably the second easiest Elite Four member in this run. But now it's time for the champ, who's none other than our beloved Wallace. And just before we actually fought him, we also got the Mega Bracelet, which means Mega Garchomp is still a possibility. But this fight with Wallace started off pretty badly. Florges as his first Pokemon, which is something I don't like dealing with, so I set up a Dragon Dance with Baxcalibur and hit 2 Ice Skull Crashes while tanking a Draining Kiss bravely. I Glavorus my rival Walrein, killed the God of the Ocean, and no, it's not Poseidon, it's clearly Kyogre, but also terrestrialized my Lodic and Wishcash get killed by Glaverush and Ice Skull Crash, and the final Pokemon Ludicolo only takes 1 hit for me to move on to the final area, the lair of Dragon King Eternatus himself. I see a ton of meddling foes that come from either the future or the past. However, that doesn't mean I don't send them to the graveyard each time I encounter them. We do get the TM for Dual Wing Beat, an X Attack, X Special Defense, and X Special Attack before we see a strange silhouette coming from the horizon. It's Finn, and he's had absolutely enough of me. I've ruined his entire life. He can never go back to the castle because they stripped him of his knight title, and the only way for him to have a fulfilling life again is to slay the Dragon King Eternatus himself, and I'm the final obstacle in his way. So here we are for one last Dragon Dance. Who's going to be sent home and who's going to fight Eternatus? Let's find out. As always, we set up the Dragon Dance with Baxcalibur on Blaziken and somehow survive a high jump kick. With the single Glaive Rush, all of the health bars are down and Corviknight comes in. We use Icicle Crash and get a lucky flinch, which allows us to use another one to kill it. His own dragon that's supposed to be destined to take out all others goes down to a Glaive Rush as well, as it seems like those 4 health bars were just for fashion. And our last 3 contenders, Snorlax, Spiritomb, and Hydrapple all fell to Glaive Rushes as well, as Finn faded away into nothing and we marched on to our final battle. We're able to grab one final X special attack and X attack to try and help us in our final endeavors, but then Eternatus shows up. He's not willing to give up his throne as strongest dragon-type master, but we don't care about that and challenge him anyway. I start out with Garchomp and try to use Sand to tag the Lord its accuracy, but we get Eterna beamed immediately and go down. I send out my Baxcalibur, click Dragon Dance twice and only get hit with a Sludge Bomb and take away 3 health bars with a single Glaive Rush hit to transform him into his big hand form, which raises all 3 of his special attack, defense, and attack stats sharply. Now we're in big trouble. Tatsugiri comes in and I try to hit it with the Soak to change it into a water typing. Unfortunately, that doesn't work out and Tatsugiri goes down as Baxcalibur hits another Glaive Rush. We tank a Cross Poison with Baxcalibur and use Dragon Knight's double team to try and raise my evasiveness. After we hit a Glaive Rush, it turns out the double team was for nothing because the turn after Dragonite gets Eterna beamed and Baxcalibur hits yet another Glaive Rush, bringing the Eternatus down to under half health. I bring Como-O and use a Clangorous Soul, and then my big boy Baxcalibur finally goes down, leaving me with only Walking Wake left. It's now 2 against 1. If we can hit both of our moves in this same turn and he doesn't recover, we basically win. Eternatus is incredibly stupid and goes for Cross Poison, which means my Walking Wake survives, hits a Dragon Pulse, and Como-O finishes us off with a single clanging skills. And just like that, we have become champion of the Pokerogue universe with only dragon types. A really fun and sweet kind of run because it required only 2 Pokemon, basically Walking Wake for the early game and Baxcalibur for the late game, while Como-O did do a lot of work himself too, but ultimately I would say this was even easier than the starter run I did last time, which you should check out as well. But now we're going to end off the video by thanking my membership and Patreon supporters for supporting the video. If you want to do so yourself, you can click the links in the description. It's always appreciated but not needed. And as always, people, don't forget to leave a like, subscribe, and share this video with your friends. I'm ZWIGGO, and I'll see you all next time.